Singularity problems that could not be explained by conventional cosmological views. Quiet Big Bang theory without singularity. Quiet resurrection theory. Introduction of vague field material space awakening from the void. In the Big Bang theory of the fireball universe, at that moment all logic breaks down. It is not possible to theorize the existence of existence from nothing. Nor can we explain the accelerated expansion of outer space, which became Nobel in 2011. Therefore, we will proceed with naming the container space in the universe as vague field. The animation is a polka dot behavior experiment in a weightless space. Polka dots sway three-dimensionally. If this polka dot is a picture of the universe, our universe is in an expanding area. However, the area where the polka dots expand is also the area where the polka dots have contracted before, and it is thought that the physical laws were completely different. The moment when the direction changes from contraction to expansion is considered to be a quiet Big Bang with no singularity. Please look at the screen. The area replacing the expansion from the contraction gradually increases, so the material space also expands while expanding. In other words, an area with zero behavior gains expansion energy and becomes a universe that expands while being reorganized into an expanding universe. Here, for the first time, the structural principle of the Big Bang was written. The world of the expansion principle starts in the area that expands in the rising and depressing movement like a polka dot floating in the space, the speed of light, gravity, mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force. This world is maintained from the time of the eclipse. When turning from expansion to contraction, there is a zero state in the middle. In the zero state, the principle of light, speed, gravity, mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, time disappears. At this point I think the universe will go black. In this way, it turns into a shrinking universe. Light, speed, gravity, mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, time works in the opposite direction. The characteristic of quiet Big Bang theory that has no singularity with respect to the cosmology that has been built so far is 1. There is no need to think that the substance was condensed at one point at the start of the Big Bang. 2. It is not necessary to think that the explosion has started the expanding universe. 3. You do not have to question the observation that the swelling is accelerating. 4. A four-dimensional dynamics space where expansion and contraction coexist and there is no singularity in the physical principle. 5. Our four-dimensional space-time is one of many that has arisen in a part of four-dimensional space. This acknowledges a new concept of ether, but the existence of ether is fundamental to constituting the container of the universe, not our space-time. It is believed that our spacetime was born 13.8 billion years ago in the expanding area of this ether-filled universe. Think of this as water containing mineral particles and think that the minerals are flowing in the water with sparkling glitter. When the water temperature is low, the flow of the water is small, but when heated and the temperature is uneven, the water flows. The way the minerals in the water are shining and flowing is considered to be a spectacle of our universe. This water world is called vague field. Vague field is a space where everything is changing as it is. Here, the area that expands, the area that contracts, and the area that is almost stopped coexist. These are governed by the law of inertia. I think these three spaces are seamlessly connected and the conditions of the space are also changing seamlessly. In the expansion space our cosmic principle is working, but in the contraction space light comes from the sky to the observer. So the universe is a pure white space and the sun and stars are shining black. Gravity acts as a repulsive force between matter and keeps the stars apart even in a shrinking space. Since mass and time have no direction, they are considered to work similarly. Start of contraction, accelerating contraction, maximum speed of contraction, decelerating contraction, end of contraction. Vague fields movement will change the spatial principle, start of expansion, accelerated expansion, maximum speed of expansion, decelerating expansion, end of expansion. If backfield's behavior is sinusoidal, the cause of the observed accelerated expansion is that this expanding universe is still young. The discovery of accelerated expansion was the 2011 Nobel Prize in Physics. With this, we were able to unify the causes of light velocity, gravity, mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, time, and the last problem, spatial expansion. Although our universe exists in a part of vague field, I think that physical principles are not unique to our universe, but there are principles common to the whole universe, law of inertia. Accelerated expansion observation data. This figure shows the accelerated expansion of the universe announced in 1999 from the observations of distant supernovae. The horizontal axis indicates redshift, retreat speed, and the vertical axis indicates luminous distance. The point in the figure is the observed type Ia supernova. If the expansion rate of the universe is constant, the slope will be constant, but in fact it can be seen that the points are distributed slightly above acceleration expansion side. Although it is a rather delicate observation result, it is considered that there is accelerated expansion because it was recognized by the Nobel Prize. The redshift of the galaxy observed by Hubble was also a subtle figure, but it has established expansion cosmology. About substance generation. Until now, in the quiet Big Bang theory, the substance itself has not changed greatly and the substance has been written with the image of continuing to exist, but there is another idea, so I will write it here. In the expanding universe, as the space becomes thinner, energy condenses and creates material, similar to condensation, and the space continues to expand and expand. But eventually, they use the expansion energy and transform into a shrinking universe so that the pendulum returns. In the shrinking universe, matter dissolves into space as it is absorbed by the ever-increasing spatial density. It resembles how ice shards dissolve into water. If you think in this way, you can see the nature of space. Matter and energy are equivalent, and the changing state of energy is the drama of the universe. It is said that the temperature and pressure of a supernova explosion cannot produce gold. What makes gold difficult is that it is difficult to make itself because it is a heavy and stable substance. As the expansion speed of the universe is accelerating, the gravitational strength of the material is also changing. Therefore, it can be inferred that the temperature of the supernova explosion will also be higher than currently assumed. In the four-dimensional dynamics space, both gravity and electric charge are considered to change, so it seems that the mechanism of gold generation is also around here. At the junction of the expanding and contracting universes, neither gravity, nor mass nor charge can exist. I don't know what kind of matter can be produced here, but I think there are some basic physical principles we do not know. Simultaneous awakening expansion universe model. Cosmology. The original cosmological diagram of time as force was a Big Bang model in which the material space expands, but it is no longer necessary to consider that the material expands due to the introduction of back field. Suppose you have an inflated balloon here. Balloons in the morning contract with cold air, but expand around the daytime due to the rise in temperature. In other words, when expansion and contraction are repeated by the change of temperature and the expansion starts, it is the beginning of the expanding universe. Since the expanding universe awakens at the same time, there is no center of expansion, and the speed of the expanding universe is activated from the time of light, gravitational mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force. Space and time awakened 13.8 billion years ago, so the farthest light can be observed at 13.8 billion light years. The galaxy beyond 8 billion light years can observe light 8 billion years ago. The light 10 billion years ago from this position has passed the Earth and cannot be observed. Cosmology. In the cosmological map of time as force, I could not understand precisely that light is observed from all directions, but I could explain it simply and clearly with the introduction of vague field. Our universe is a sphere with a radius of 13.8 billion light years. Even if humans have technology that can move within 1 light year, the size of the universe is 138 billion times, meaning that they cannot actually move in the universe at all. This is the same with light, and the speed of light is quite slow at the cosmic level. Vague field in the background. There is movement corresponding to the size here, but on our scale too small this movement can be perceived as the speed of light. Because the scales differ by tens of digits, it can be thought of as just the difference between our world and the particle world. Given that material energy exploded and diffused according to the conventional Big Bang theory, it is thought that galaxies exist at high density in the early universe. On the other hand, if the material does not expand and diffuse from one point but wakes up from expansion energy from four-dimensional space, it is considered that there is no bias in the distribution density of galaxies. If we can observe that the galaxy density in each era is the same in the future, a quiet Big Bang theory without a singularity will be verified. Transition of smooth principle. This world was not a Big Bang, but a transition of quiet principles. In the first place, space cannot be stabilized unless contraction and expansion coexist in four-dimensional space. I think this is inevitable in the four-dimensional world. Principle of expanding universe and shrinking universe. Item. Light. Gravity. Mass. Solar. Galaxy balance. Night sky. Entropy. Dimension. Expanding universe. Diffusion. Attraction. Inertial mass. Nuclear fusion. Expansion in gravity. Black. Increase. Four-dimensional space. Contraction universe. Accumulation. Repulsive force substances. Inertial mass. Nuclear fission. Contraction and repulsion. White. Decrease. Four-dimensional space. The space principle that the expanding universe diverges and the contracting universe condenses is contradictory. Also, the Big Bang theory that started from one point cannot answer the question of what exploded and how. Four-dimensional space, vague field, is a space where the expansion and contraction areas are maintained while maintaining a balance. The universe that started in a part of the expansion area in this is our expansion universe. And the speed of light, gravity, mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, and time are physical principles created by the behavior of four-dimensional space. Here, I feel that the absolute quantity invariant principle of the universe exists. Backfield's expansion began at the same time, 13.8 billion years ago. As a result, a position 13.8 billion light-years away can be observed as the light of the farthest universe. The arrangement of galaxies is expanding at the speed of light, but nearby galaxy clusters may be moving away or approaching, and each vector has its own vector. The size of the expansion area is thought to be much larger than 13.8 billion light-years. Although the speed of light in a vacuum is the expansion speed, the time is the same as the expansion of space, so it is considered impossible to measure the change in the expansion speed. I think that the expansion rate of the universe can be defined as follows. Cosmic expansion coefficient equals V2 V1 slash T2 T1 slash V1. V1 original universe size. V2 observed cosmic size. T1 absolute zero. T2 universe temperature. If the original universe size is a point, the space expansion rate is infinite and does not match the observation fact. Therefore, there is no Big Bang theory that started from one point. This equation is expansion due to temperature, but I think space has fluctuation due to space motion and inertial energy. If we consider that the vague field swing is a sine wave, the expansion will eventually slow down, but we cannot observe it on a human time scale. What is vague field? At the end of the expansion pressure becomes zero, but the gravity and the time become zero, so the electrons do not fall into the nucleus. It is a frozen atom. And this frozen atom is in a very inert state, and it is thought that there is no change in space even after billions of years. In my cosmology, a space that does not expand is a world of absolute 0 degrees. In a space that does not expand, we believe that there is no light velocity, gravity, no internal pressure that supports the space of atoms, and no flow of time. After that, the atomic activity restarts under the expansion pressure or the contraction pressure. This is the beginning of a new universe. As you can see, there is no significant change in the material arrangement in backfield, and the material does not solidify due to gravity and maintains a uniformly dispersed form, and I feel that the control to maintain the size and order of backfield is working. Backfield transcends our observable space on both a spatial scale and a time scale, so it can be understood as an image if we think that 13.8 billion years of spacetime is included in small movements. Vague field stabilizer. In vague field, it can be considered that the gravity works strongly when the space expands quickly, and works weakly when the space expands slowly. The faster the expansion, the stronger the gravity and the stronger the power to organize the universe. If the expansion of the space is slow, the gravity will be weakened and the galaxy will not be hardened by gravity. Similarly, if the contraction of the space is fast, the repulsive force will be strong, and if the contraction is slow, the repulsive force will be weak. Therefore, it is thought that there is no fear that the material will diffuse due to the repulsive force. In the expanding universe, matter accumulates due to gravity, and giant stars create heavy atoms with supernova. On the other hand, in the shrinking universe, matter is broken down by repulsion into light atoms. It is thought that matter is swaying in the universe that expands and contracts repeatedly. Vague field scale. The start of spacetime is when vague field turns into expansion. Since the expansion area is not the same as the expansion speed, the space that can be observed for 13.8 billion light-years is as shown in the figure. This allows the observer to observe a similar 13.8 billion light-year space anywhere in the expansion area. There will be countless slightly different universes. I think our universe, created in only a small part of the huge vague field, is like an ant on an elephant's back. I think it looks like a flat, uniform field for ants. In addition, our 13.8 billion years of time are condensed in the momentary movement of vague field. We believe that the speed of light is very fast, but on a huge vague field scale, it is not a feeling that it is fast because the jerky movement is the speed of light. You can see that speed and time sense are relative. The elephant walks slowly, the rat feels fast, but if you measure it, it will not change much. Also, the heartbeat of small animals is fast and the heartbeat of large animals is slow. I think that the body time is determined by the heart rate, so elephants and rats live in their time world, and the length of their life feels the same. You will. Time scale in backfield. 1 year of vague field, 1, y. In the whole universe, 1x10 plus 20, y. Our lifetime, 1x10 plus 35, y. In the atomic world, 1x10 plus 50, y. In the Planck world, 1x10 plus 70, y. 1 year in vague field is 1x10 plus 35, y, in our living time. Vague field's visible area. Observation place Earth, and G1, Galaxy 1, G2, Galaxy 2, U138, 13.8 billion light-years observation limit. This is the area of light where the colored part can be observed. And the font *20 billion light-years further away is also a galaxy that awakened 13.8 billion years ago. There is currently no light reaching the observation site Earth, which is 20 billion light-years away. Galaxies 13 billion light-years away are now 26 billion light-years away. The galaxies we can observe are chronological and cannot be observed because no light has reached them. 1 billion years from now, the same galaxy will be 14 billion light-years away. There is a huge vague field outside the visible area. Although the expansion space of 13.8 billion light-years increases, it is considered that the size of vague field is only a partial thermal expansion of steel balls. This means that the expansion of the small system is part of the expansion of the larger system, and ultimately is concentrated in the expansion of the back field. It is difficult to understand, but the expansion of light is thought to be similar to the situation in which heat is transmitted to the surroundings. What is space expansion? The air around us is made up of oxygen and nitrogen atoms. A vacuum is filled between the oxygen and nitrogen atoms. Similarly, there is a vacuum between the nuclei and the electrons inside the atomic structure. The expansion of the space means that these vacuum spaces are expanding. Also, the arrangement of galaxies is not expanding, but the space itself is expanding. What is space expansion? It has been an important issue for me, but I would like to explain that part of the huge vague field expansion is our universe. It is difficult to understand the expansion of space as an image of real space. The expansion rate of 300,000 km/s is compared to 1 m/s at our walking speed of 4 km/h. The image cannot catch up because there is a gap of 9 digits from the light speed of 300 million m/s. The coefficient of expansion of a gas follows Charles's law, and when the pressure is constant, the temperature of any gas expands by 1/273, 0.00366, of the volume at 0 degrees Celsius for every 1 degree Celsius increase in temperature. For example, if the volume expansion rate of a space is 0.0037/k, 13.8 billion light-years/0.0037x space temperature, 2.7 K, equals 10 trillion light-years is the actual expansion space size. This means that a 10 trillion light-year area began to expand 13.8 billion years ago, a quiet Big Bang. The above is a guess based on a gas expansion model. Backfield's expansion and contraction may be thought of as a kind of field vibration model due to the kinetic energy and inertia of the field rather than temperature. Since the vibration of the field and the speed of light are not the same, the range where the field awakens and the range where the speed of light propagates are different. There is no black hole. A black hole appears many times in this text, but considering that the cause of gravity is the expansion acceleration of the space, there is no gravitational source that swallows the space. However, there is a possibility that an area separated from the space will be created. This is just a black hole from our perspective. Light may bend because the distortion of the surrounding space remains. But is there a star that will be swallowed by a black hole that has lost spatial continuity and disappear? The question remains. In a quiet Big Bang theory in a four-dimensional space, expansion and contraction coexist. When a black hole is born in the expanding universe, it becomes a white hole in the contracting universe and everything is reset. We built a black hole theory by imagining a gravitational field in which even light could not escape because we thought that gravity was a property of matter. The fiction created by this involves singularities and there is no solution. In this four-dimensional dynamic cosmology, we were able to return to a very simple space by introducing vague field. Singularity problem. Singularity. A singular point is a point at which the linear equation is broken. The word singularity is used in both mathematics and physics. Recently, it is called a technical singularity in the field of AI, but this term has a slightly different meaning. I think it was a singular point as a result of searching for words that could get attention. The singularity of gravity is a place where the gravitational field becomes infinite, which is described in black hole theory. The peculiarity of mathematics is the exclusion and criterion of mathematical objects considered under an appropriate framework because they say not defined or doesn't behave well. The technical singularity or singularity is the point at which exponentially advanced artificial intelligence emerges as a major player in civilization progress. In this cosmology, we denied the singularity. Naturally, there is no nonlinear phenomenon. The simple reason is that nothing happens from nothing. A singularity is a very human word that describes a state of getting stuck in theory. At present, the world economy is at a singular point. Are these properties related to vague field? Enthalpy. Interaction force, extensive state quantity defined as the sum of the energy required for the work of internal energy and volume expansion. At constant pressure, the flow of heat is the change of the enthalpy of the system, which is equal. Boyle-Charles's law. A summary of Boyle's law and Charles' law. Gas volume is inversely proportional to pressure, Boyle's law, and proportional to absolute temperature, Charles's law. R equals gas constant, P equals pressure, V equals volume, T equals absolute temperature, N equals gas mass, mole. The equation PV equals nRT holds. The gas constant is R equals 8.3143 J/mole K. This equation is called an ideal gas equation of state. It is one of the important laws of physics that the product of pressure and volume divided by the absolute temperature of a gas is always constant, PV/T equals constant. Interaction force. In the past, it was simply called power, but its name changed because it caused the power and confusion of classical physics. It is now commonly referred to as interaction. There are 4 interactions in the universe that govern the movement of matter and celestial bodies. Nuclear power that connects protons and neutrons in the nucleus. Electromagnetic force that attracts nuclei and electrons. An interaction that changes an elementary particle into another elementary particle. Gravity attracting celestial bodies, that is, universal gravitation. Of these, electromagnetic and gravitational interactions are said to be transmitted indefinitely. I don't understand the term interaction. This is because elementary particles do not have the image of transmitting power. I think this is a concept guided by elementary particle theory. Electromagnetic force refers to the interaction of receiving electric charge from an electric or magnetic field. Electric charge has plus and minus. The strength of the electromagnetic force is proportional to the inverse square of the distance and is formulated as Coulomb's law. From the gauge field theory, there are particles that mediate the interaction, and in the case of electromagnetic interaction, photons mediate. Are photons that mediate electromagnetic interaction sometimes called virtual photons? The force acting at the atomic size and the force transmitted to the infinite are combined and considered as 4 forces, but the force of the elementary particle size is excluded here and the electromagnetic force and gravity are considered. Astrophysics and cosmology. It shows the scope of general astrophysics and cosmology. This category shows areas where there is no other way than to focus on materials and study and the construction of theory. The scope of cosmology is gradually narrowing due to advances in observation technology. At that time, Newtonian mechanics was a concept that determined this world, which could be called cosmology. At present, no one calls it cosmology, but I think it is an important element of cosmology. This figure does not describe the cause of light, velocity, gravity, mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, time, and the container of the universe. It is important for cosmology to look outside the current state of observation physics. C, G, M, T in physics formulas are not constants. This is a variable derived from the physical principle created by the behavior of the four-dimensional space. If you think so, it is necessary to understand that the current science is an approximation formula that holds in the local coordinate system. The prevailing plural cosmology feels like an effort to find something unknown. If you read this cosmology, you will understand that warp navigation and time travel of science fiction movies are impossible. In this way, there are two types of things that we do not understand. It is an incomprehensible thing and a delusion created by humans. Scientific cosmology begins with identifying these differences. Electromagnetic force and gravity. In this cosmology, I thought that gravity was the acceleration of space, but I would like to think of electromagnetic force as an interaction between space expansion and matter. Photons carried by the expansion of space gain the speed of light, but three-dimensional particles larger than the photon cannot ride the wave of expansion. However, it receives friction from the space due to expansion. It is thought that this gives charge to electrons and protons in the space. The frictional force in this space occurs in a vacuum particle space, and the situation is different from the triboelectricity that occurs in our daily life. Electromagnetic force is a force that attracts nuclei, electrons, and atoms, and is a force that solidifies substances, which is 36 orders of magnitude greater than gravity. If CO2 is solidified at a low temperature, it will become solid, but the temperature of carbon dioxide, CO2, creates molecular separation. Therefore, the expansion force of the space created by temperature is stronger than electromagnetic force at room temperature. It is thought that nuclear force is also a phenomenon that arises from the expansion energy of space. Gravity acts in only one direction, but electromagnetic forces have entrances and exits into the lines of magnetic force. However, when it comes to electromagnetic waves, it only diffuses in one direction, like photons or gravity. A magnet always has two magnetic poles, N and S. This combination is called a magnetic dipole. The existence of a magnetic monopole, with only a north pole or only a south pole has not been confirmed. There are two kinds of electricity, plus and minus, which can be taken out alone. This is because electricity is derived from positive protons and negative electrons. The force acting in a substance as an electromagnetic force is closed, but in the state of an electromagnetic wave, an electric field and a magnetic field depend on each other and travel at the speed of light, riding on the expansion of space like a set of particles. It is thought that this set of particles behaves like a photon. The reason why gravity is 36 orders of magnitude smaller than the electromagnetic force is that there is an apparent difference of 36 orders between the electromagnetic force of the closed system, 3D, and the electromagnetic wave of the open system, 1D. The dimension was taken into account to fill the gap of 36 digits. It can be explained assuming that the denominator is close to zero. About ethers in classical physics. It is a term for a medium that was thought to be necessary for light to propagate, mainly in physics up to the 19th century. In modern times, theories such as special relativity are established without using the concept of ether, and ether is considered to be a part of the obsolete physics theory. In this cosmology, we thought that the expansion of space plays the role of ether. History of light and ether. After the 17th century, the existence of ether was assumed as a medium for power and light to travel through space. One of the beginnings is found in the Descartes, which supposes the fine substance that fills the gap between all substances, like wine in a grape barrel, and that it transmits light. He also thought that the planet was moving on the vortex. Newton thought that the entity of light was many particles. This is an assumption based on the fact that light travels straight and is reflected off the surface of the object. However, assuming that light is a particle, it is difficult to explain refraction and diffraction. To explain refraction, Newton states in Ethers, 1704, that ether media transmits faster vibrations than light, and the repelled light is in a state of reflection attack or transmission attack, and said that refraction and diffraction would result. We believe that the vibration of this ether medium is related to heat radiation, that is, the fact that heat is transmitted even in a vacuum, and stated as follows. Even if air is exhausted to create a vacuum space, is there still a medium smaller than air and heat can be transmitted by the vibration of the medium? and the medium is the same as the medium that refracts or reflects light, and the vibration causes the light to transport heat between objects, and does the vibration lead to the bouts of reflection and transmission? Huygens hypothesized that light was a longitudinal wave propagating in ether before Newton, but Newton denied this idea. If the light is a longitudinal wave, it cannot have a special direction other than its traveling direction, and phenomena like polarization cannot be considered. Therefore, phenomena such as birefringence, in which the degree of refraction changes depending on the direction of polarized light, cannot be explained. In this regard, Newton thought that light particles are not spherical, but birefringence occurs due to the difference in the orientation of the side. There were other reasons why Newton thought that light was not a wave. If ether is filled in the space and light is transmitted by the interaction between ethers, it is difficult to think that ether does not affect the motion of huge objects, such as planets and comets. However, since no such effect was actually observed, we thought that ether did not exist. Many scholars have read the Etheric Debate, and it is very interesting. In this cosmology, I thought that the expansion of space plays the role of ether. Cartesian states that ether transmits light. Huygens hypothesized that light is a longitudinal wave propagating in ether. I thought Newton's ether was esoteric, but related to the fact that heat was transmitted even in vacuum. And it is difficult to think that ether does not affect the motion of huge objects, such as planets and comets. And we thought that ether did not exist because no such effect was actually observed. Spatial hierarchy. He thought there was a universe in the ethereal sea and looked for the cause of transmitting light. In this era, I imagined a mysterious substance called ether. I thought the universe was filled with something and tried to explain every interaction. However, the reaction from ether cannot be found. I think that the state replaced by quantum theory is the present physics, but it is still considered that it is filled with particles. When it comes to a mechanism that transmits like sound in the air through particles filled in space, it is called a wave. In this case, the sound source and light source need independent energy. It is space that is expanding. The space surrounding oxygen and nitrogen atoms is expanding. The space between the atoms that make up the stone or metal is expanding. The space between our cells is expanding, but we can't feel this expansion. It is similar to the fact that the presence of air is hard to feel in real life. The size of the universe confirmed by observations is said to be 13.8 billion light-years, but the area considered to be spreading outside this universe has been designated as vague field. This looks like nesting dolls, like Matryoshka nesting in space with different time scale of the physical world. Vague field, 1x10 plus 35, m. Size of the observed universe, 1x10 plus 18, m, 13.8 billion light-years of outer space. Our daily world, 1, m. World of atomic size, 1x10 minus 18, m, imaginary particle size. World of Planck size, 1x10 minus 35, m. In terms of numbers, it feels like a huge world and a tiny world. Since the size below the atomic size is smaller than the tip of the nail, it cannot be said that it is the same spatial principle. Mandelbrot set infinite space in mathematics. The set of complex numbers C that satisfy the condition that the complex sequence Znn0 defined by the following recurrence does not diverge to infinity in the limit of n is the Mandelbrot set. The fractal figure that occupies most of the area of the Mandelbrot set on the complex plane is an infinite repetition of an infinite number of circles circumscribing the cardioid, including the origin, and an infinite number of small circles circumscribing the circle. Furthermore, when the surroundings are enlarged, countless enclave figures similar to this fractal figure are seen. Also, the slow divergence area that includes these figures also has fractal characteristics, and constitutes various graphic elements such as spirals and similarities. The entire Mandelbrot set, including the enclaves, has been proven to be connected. To rewrite the Mandelbrot set without using complex numbers, replace Zn with a point, xn, yn, and c with a point, a, b. And it is sufficient. Explaining the sense of scale of the physical world with the Mandelbrot set, if our cosmic expansion rate of 14 billion light-years is 1x10⁻35 m, the expansion rate of vague field's Mandelbrot basic form will be 1 m, I feel. 4D space and 3D space. The controversy between Niels Bohr and Einstein, God doesn't roll dice, is well known, but still poorly explained. Niels Bohr of quantum mechanics observes quantum behavior as it is. Einstein, on the other hand, is arguing while looking at images taken of the quantum. In other words, the two cannot agree because the four-dimensional space and the three-dimensional space are confused and argued. The four-dimensional space is a three-dimensional space in which the coordinate system itself expands, so it is necessary to consider the change including expansion. This is the phenomenon that appears when you look at the coordinate system at the quantum level. In other words, the position of a quantum floating in a wave cannot be determined if its size is less than a certain time width. This is like a frame of a video you have shot, and you can see it jumping. Continuous movement cannot be observed near the minimum time width. What is the multiverse interpretation born from a Schrödinger cat? A device that randomly emits poison gas in a box and a cat is put in this box is a discussion of whether the cat in this box is dead or alive. From the point of view of quantum mechanics, the cats in the box thought that live cats and dead cats coexist. When the box is opened and observed, life or death is determined. We thought that it was impossible to think that a living cat and a dead cat coexist, and a multidimensional interpretation was born. There is a universe of live cats and a universe of dead cats. Therefore, the observer of the living cat universe opens the box and observes the living cat. On the other hand, observers in the universe of the dead cat say that there is no contradiction because the dead cat can be observed by opening the box. A person observing the Schrödinger cat with the naked eye feels no contradiction, but a person observing the image taken with the projector looks like a jumping sight. Depending on the position of the film, different images will be strange and irresistible. In addition, the image that has become a still photograph can confirm the confirmed event, so I think this is true. However, the live cat's appearance as observed with the naked eye is real. In order to explain the duality of light, quantum mechanics has expanded so far and stepped into the interpretation of the multiverse, but of course this will not be proven. It's scientific, but it's science to inflate your delusions so far, so you have to be careful. What is a 4D dynamics coordinate system? We have considered our world as a three-dimensional and time coordinate system. Apparently, he did not consider time as the time axis of the coordinate system. So physics could be represented by a linear equation. At E equals mc superscript 2, m was the value determined by the measurement. C was considered to be the cosmological constant at the speed of light. The only constant in four-dimensional dynamics coordinates is the rate of expansion of the space. This expansion energy is the speed of light, gravity, mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, and time. Inflation, deflation, expansion-contraction model. Expansion, shrinkage, light speed, gravity, repulsive force, mass, charge, time. To convert this equation to our unit system, we need to consider the coefficient kappa or consider a new unit system based on expansion and contraction. The theory of all things is completed by integrating the physical equations into the four-dimensional dynamics unit system. This is the theory of all things because all forces are a function of the rate of expansion. At present, gravity is described assuming elementary particles called gravitons. How do elementary particles work and cause gravitational phenomena? Does the graviton spring out of space when an object accelerates? I think that it can be explained more easily if gravity is simply the acceleration of space. The size of this coordinate system, including the expansion and contraction regions, is a world view that is several tens of orders of magnitude larger than the size considered by conventional Big Bang theory. Our world is like a little bubble in a dynamic coordinate system. This expansion area can be compared to a space that expands as it rises due to buoyancy, like bubbles generated in the deep sea. The physical principle of this world, light velocity, gravity, mass, electromagnetic force, nuclear force, time, is born from the expansion coordinate system principle. Four-dimensional dynamics, space and butterfly effect. The future of the universe cannot be predicted from infinite unobservable vague field movements. In conventional physics, natural phenomena change their state over time. In Newtonian mechanics, he discovered the law of change of such natural phenomena, that is, the law of the motion of an object, and established a method to predict the future state. But both light speed and gravity are functions of the expansion rate of the space. And it is thought that the expansion speed of the space is changing. One of the thought experiments, Laplace's devil, obtains a perfect initial state and predicts all accurate states in the past and future from it, but in reality it is impossible to know a completely accurate initial state. Even in such cases, it has often been assumed in natural science research that if the difference from the true initial state is small, then the final state will also have a small difference. However, the discovery of chaos theory has revealed that a system that obeys the deterministic and Newtonian laws of behavior can behave stochastically as if it were random. In chaos theory, in a dynamical system with a certain nonlinearity, when the difference existing in the initial state causes an average exponential increase with the passage of time and produces a large difference that cannot be ignored, the system has initial value sensitivity. The butterfly effect is an allegorical paraphrase of the initial sensitivity in this chaos theory. Such a property is also called long-term unpredictability or unpredictability. The existence of long-term unpredictability, which is a consequence of such initial sensitivity, is also implied by the butterfly effect.